As soon as Evelyn took the stage at Jackie's, the atmosphere in the room changed. She has the crisp, purposeful step of someone who has been pushed too far. Rather than the quiet gray for which she is occasionally renowned, for days, rumors had been circulating across fan pages, makeup chairs, and green rooms, all focused on a single, devastating allegation that Evelyn had participated in. Chantel was prepared to reveal every detail of the romance. However, rather than trembling under the gossip, Evelyn turned to the throng, her voice solid, jaw set, her gaze fixed. "Let's be clear," she murmured, cutting over the audience's muted murmur. Lying appeared to linger in the air like a heavy electric current. These stories are pure lies. Jackie's grasp on her cards tightened, but her countenance remained unreadable as she struggled to balance her impulse to control the situation with her desire to let everything unfold for the cameras. Floods of home-based fans were glued to their televisions. Real-time responses on social media showed that although some people supported Evelyn, others believed her denial was merely stoking the flames. Additionally, everyone knew that something more significant was going to happen during the tense stillness that followed her speech, as if it were a part of the set design. The lights in Jackie's studio felt hotter than normal, reflecting off the polished floor and capturing the tension in the air. During the warm-up, the audience was boisterous. But as the camera focused on the two women seated at the front, it became quiet, nearly holding their breath on either side of the stage. Evelyn was standing stiffly. Her hands were clenched in her lap, but her eyes were keen, fixed on Chantel as if she were preparing for a blow. Chantel, on the other hand, appeared almost too at ease. She tugged at her lips with a faint, knowing smile. One leg stretched over the other, as though she was waiting for Evelyn to slip. Jackie's chair was between them. Her body was stiff, but she was tilted toward the audience. She was making an effort to appear impartial, but occasionally, like a referee who senses that the fight is about to go out of bounds, her eyes darted tensely between the two. Every change in expression, hand twitch, and jaw clenching was captured by the cameras, which transmitted the event live to hundreds of people watching at home and thousands more who were already recording it for social media. It was Evelyn who broke the silence first. "You've been telling everyone that I'm involved in something, that I'm not, for weeks," she remarked in a low voice that pierced through the atmosphere like glass. "You're sitting on this stage now, pretending to have receipts." Her brows narrowed as she moved forward a little. "So, where are they?" The audience reacted in a wave of murmurs, a couple of people even gasping loud enough for the mics to pick it up. Chantel didn't flinch. Instead, she tilted her head, resting her elbow on the armrest and propping her chin on her hand, like she was studying Evelyn. "Receipts aren't something you flash, you bring them out when the time is right," she remarked quietly. Her words purposeful. "You bring them around for fun. Maybe we can start by hearing exactly what the accusations are." Jackie attempted to intervene in a calm but somewhat strained voice. Evelyn had the opportunity to answer straight, but she interrupted with a stern look. She added, "Oh, we all know what she's been saying," as she turned back to Chantel. Chantel's smile wavered for a little moment, but it was enough for the cameras to capture her saying, "You've been whispering about an affair, about me crossing lines I would never cross. You've been planting seeds, hoping they'll grow into something ugly enough to ruin me." She stood up upright, sweeping, and before responding, she removed an imaginary speck from her skirt. "If the truth ruins you, that's not on me," she stated. A woman in the second row covered her mouth with her hands and whispered something to the man next her, saying, "I'm not here to play innocent when I know what I've seen." Red recording lights and phones held high among the crowd people were blinking to make sure they didn't miss anything. Everyone seemed to be waiting for the gloves to be taken off, and there was a mixture of astonishment and excitement in the air. A few people flinched as Evelyn stood up and her chair scraped against the stage. Her heels clicked in the uncomfortable silence as she made a few deliberate strides toward Chantel. "You've seen nothing but what you want to see," she said, remarked, her voice trembling now from exasperation rather than fear. "You're trying to sell the whole story you've constructed in your mind to everyone who will listen. I will not allow you to use me as your headline. Chantel remained sitting, her face almost daring Evelyn to continue as she looked up at her. According to her, the headline might occasionally write itself, particularly when the door is left open by those involved. Whispers sounded in the back of the room, and someone's voice came loud enough to reach the microphones. Oh, wow! Jackie leaned forward, obviously caught between intervening before the situation went too far and letting it unfold for the drama. Ladies, she stated in a stern voice, but against the current flowing between the two women. Her comments sounded like background noise. We're live. Let's remember that. Evelyn's hands tightened into fists at her sides and her jaw tensed. Sitting there and pretending to be the voice of truth is not your place. You've got your own, she added. Miss Chantel. Maybe you should reconsider attempting to bring mine into the spotlight, because you don't want to be out here. There was a slight but noticeable change in the atmosphere. It was immediately apparent to the audience. The eyes grew wide. A few people straightened their posture, and the room began to murmur, became louder. Chantel's smile had vanished, to be replaced by a more difficult tirade expression. Part warning, part disobedience. Do you mean to threaten me? Her voice carried even though she inquired quietly. Evelyn said, I'm saying that we can go there if you'd like to. Be aware that when the words are, they can't be taken back once they're out. Jackie hesitated after her fingers jerked as if she were going to signal the crew. People talked about this kind of unscripted, unadulterated drama for weeks. She still leaned somewhat closer to Evelyn. She said, be careful, yet it was still captured by the microphones. The tenseness persisted. It simply changed, deepened. Evelyn crossed her arms and took a small step back, as though she was trying to restrain herself. Chantal said steadily as she leaned forward. I'm not the one who's afraid of the truth, she responded. You are, because you know deep down that there's more to this story than you want people to see. The audience responded once again, and the sound the stage lights seemed to burn hotter. Every second seemed to drag a bit too long. No one moved to cut to commercial. No one dared look away. Phones were still recording, and people outside the studio were already reacting online in real time, with trending hashtags appearing, speculative threads growing, and blurry screenshots from the live feed being dissected. The audience seemed to lean in all at once as Jackie's words left her mouth, as if the entire room had been drawn forward by an unseen force. This was no longer just a heated exchange. It was the kind of moment that could change how everyone saw both women, but it felt like they were just getting started. Chantel took a slow, deliberate breath, her gaze shifting between Jackie and Evelyn. You're not going to brush this off, she said, as the lights on stage felt heavier and hotter, and somewhere in the back, a microphone stand fell over with a clang that no one bothered to acknowledge. Whatever was just whispered to you, Jackie, we're all going to hear it, she said, cutting through the low hum of the crowd. Jackie shifted in her chair, clasping and unclasping her hands in her lap. This isn't the time. No, this is exactly the time, Chantel interrupted. Stepping forward, the audience erupted in applause as Evelyn said, protect me from what? Another one of your half-baked conspiracy theories. In my opinion, you've been protecting her for too long, and now you're trying to protect her again. You've been spinning stories since the day you decided my name was your ticket to relevance. Storytelling, Chantel repeated, letting the word linger for a moment. You think I need to make anything up when the truth is right here? She jabbed a finger toward Evelyn, her nails catching the stage light like tiny flashes of steel. Jackie single quotes as head moves back. And a few people actually stood up as if that would help them catch every micro-expression crossing these women's faces. Truth from you is like gold from a plastic chain. Evelyn shot back, the smirk returning to her lips. It may shine for a moment, but the moment people touch it, they see it for the truth. But it was obvious that she was no longer in control. The energy had tipped, and now Chantel and Evelyn were leading the chaos. Evelyn interrupted. Leaning closer, go ahead, Chantel. Name stung, Chantel didn't flinch, but her jaw clenched and her voice lowered. You can play clever all you want, but you and I both know that if I start naming names, do it. Names. Give them a show. Jackie began to say something, but the audience's sudden outburst drowned her out. The chance of saying it was like waves crashing into a beach. Camera phones swayed and bobbed as people tried to get the ideal angle and shot for the inevitable viral video. You want a show? Fine. How about we start with that little trip you took last spring? Evelyn's smirk wavered. What trip? Oh, don't act like you don't. Chantel took a step closer, narrowing the already small distance between them. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? A sharp gasp sliced through the audience, and Evelyn's hands curled into fists at her sides. The voice that oozed mock sympathy. The one where you swore you were leaving to clear your head, but it wasn't your head you were clearing, but rather your conscience. Funny, because I've got messages. I've got witnesses, Chantal said, tilting her head. She took a moment to process the information before continuing, and one of those witnesses, geez. In this room right now, Evelyn's eyes darted as the crowd erupted into commotion. With people turning in their chairs to look about, "You're bluffing," she finally murmured. Her tone firm, but her breathing faster now. Looking over the faces before her for the traitor among them. Am I? Chantal asked, gesturing to the third row without averting her gaze. With an enigmatic expression. A woman with a sleek black bob lowered her phone from her face. Evelyn's eyes flashed with awareness as her lips slightly parted. You, she said in a whisper. Dot's brows lifted. Hold on, am I implying that she is fully aware of what transpired in that Miami dressing room? Chantal's voice was raised just enough for everyone in the room to hear. The audience's volume doubled. While some screamed, some gasped. And the remainder hurried to get every possible shot of the moment. Evelyn walked over to the stage's edge. The woman in the third row caught her attention. You're displaying a lot of nervousness. Instead of answering, the woman simply lifted her eyebrows in a way that made the weight of the air between them increased. Jackie glanced between them, clearly unsure whether to pull the plug before things went really haywire or to let it play out. Chantal responded forcefully. Perhaps we ought to know. This is precisely what I have been discussing. Therefore, we won't stop now. Evelyn has been disparaging me, accusing me of lying and attempting to make me desperate. In actuality, she has been concealing significant information, and now we are finally making progress. The sound was drowned out by Evelyn's speech. You're attempting to bring everyone down with you because you can't, and that's all we're getting. Stan is not the focus of attention. Focal point. There was no amusement in Chantal's laugh. I would have done this long ago if I sought attention. This has nothing to do with attention, Evelyn. This is about your fear that your idealized self-image is about to be shattered. The stage was quiet for a while, save for the slight hum of the lights. The final inch of distance between them was then closed by Evelyn's advance. She lowered her voice to a low, menacing pitch. I'll tell them stuff about you that will make these unimportant rumors seem like praises if you keep pressuring me. The audience responded immediately. The stage was pummeled by a wall of noise. A producer was furiously waving at another crew member somewhere off to the side. And it was obvious they were discussing whether or not to cut to commercial. But neither woman made any action. Both of them were aware that whatever happened next could drastically alter the plot. So they stood motionless, breathing the same nervous air. Suddenly, the woman in the third row got up from her chair. She simply began to walk without saying anything, slowly toward the direction of the stage. The beat of her heels clicking on the floor seemed to reverberate throughout the entire space. Her heels hitting the shiny floor made a nearly mesmerizing sound. The spectator is drawn farther into the action with each click. Phones angled forward. Conversations were quiet. And the lights appeared to follow her as though the stage itself sensed that this was going to turn into a pivotal moment. A tiny, knowing smile curved Chantal's lips. Jackie leaned forward, her gaze flitting between the two women on stage and the approaching woman, while Evelyn's arms were crossed securely over her chest. A protective shield she hadn't employed all night. The woman, as though estimating the amount of damage control she would have to perform after this was all over, stopped short of the stage stairs, looking about the room and then focusing on Evelyn. Her voice was calm, but it pierced through the tension like glass. "You know who I am?" she continued. Evelyn took a moment to answer, but her poise was compromised by the tiny quiver of her jaw. She finally answered, "I know you've been attempting to put yourself in situations you don't comprehend." "Oh, I understand perfectly. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. And I've remained quiet for months because I thought maybe you'd find it in yourself to do the right thing. Obviously, I was wrong." The woman laughed briefly, but without humor. "See, this is what I've been saying all along. There are people out here who've been holding on to the truth because they were afraid of what Evelyn might do if it got out." As Evelyn's eyes flashed, she said, "If anyone should be scared, it's you, Chantal." For spreading lies and dragging the room seemed to hold its breath as the woman led innocent people into your mess. "I'm not here for her," she said, pointing to Chantel. "I'm here because I'm tired of watching you play victim while you know exactly what you did." Jackie's voice finally broke the silence. "Look, if we're going to start making accusations, we have to keep in mind that this is a live recording. Anything you say here will be recorded forever, so be careful what you say." However, the woman on the stairs paid no attention to her and was only focused on Evelyn. "Miami," she said slowly, as if she was enjoying the word. Using a stern tone, Evelyn shook her head and asked, "Do you want to tell them, or should I?" The woman grinned and said, "There's nothing to tell. Miami was a work trip." The gathering erupted in yells, gasps, and more than a few astonished silences when the speaker said, "A work trip that ended with you in the wrong dressing room at the wrong time with the wrong person." People's hands shook when holding camera phones as they made an effort to stay up. Chantal stepped back a little, allowing the woman and Evelyn's energies to flow. Above the commotion came Evelyn's voice. "To make things seem worse than they actually are, you're manipulating the facts. The whole tale is not in your possession." The woman said coolly, "I don't need the whole tale. I've had enough." Whether they acknowledge it or not, many others in this room share this sentiment. A member of the audience shouted, "Show the receipts." Immediately after, the crowd began chanting, "Receipts. Receipts?" The woman took her phone out of her bag, quickly scrolling with her thumb, and put it up to the cameras. "I didn't want this to happen, but if it's necessary to expose the truth, then so be it." To get a shot, the camera operator rushed. Evelyn, however, stepped forward abruptly and spoke sharply. "You have no right to post that. You're not entitled." Chantal gave a little chuckle. "Oh, it's a bootrights. Evelyn, you've been acting like a person who is above everyone else for years. However, you break down the moment someone changes the course of events." Evelyn turned to Chantal and spoke loudly, trembling. "I'm not going to crumble. People who don't deserve to be included in your carnival are the ones I'm defending." "It's amusing," Chantal answered, "because you're just defending yourself, in my opinion." Jackie was now standing, her palm up as if to avert the impending storm. "Both of you, enough. We need to take a break." "No breaks," the woman on the stair remarked forcefully. "The public needs to see just this. A man in a baseball is in the front row. No cuts, no edits, just the truth. Raw and unfiltered." His pal nodded, already texting frantically into his phone. As Cap leaned over and whispered, "This is going to blow up online in seconds." When the woman eventually took the final step, the tension increased. Dot stood at the center of the stage. She whispered, now just a few feet from Evelyn, "You can keep spinning your story." The mics captured Evelyn's response, which was no more than a whisper. But deep down, "I could end this right now. And you had better be prepared for what I'm going to say about you if you." Kadu, Dot raising her eyebrows. Chantel looked at the audience as if she was still in shock at what she had just heard. "It's a standoff now, I see. I'm good with that. First, let's see who blinks." The lady did not flinch. After a lengthy, uninterrupted moment of holding Evelyn's stare, she turned to face the audience. "The truth always comes out," she uttered, and her tone permeated each jockey, slowly sat back down, her eyes darting between the three women. And as she slipped her phone back into her bag, The noise level of the crowd decreased to a low, buzzing hum, the kind of silence that didn't mean calm, but rather that something was about to happen, and everyone knew it. Some were mouthing, "Keep going," while others were in a frenzy over to the side. Others were making frantic gestures to wrap it up, when Chantel suddenly stepped forward and said something that caused everyone in the front row to gasp and lean forward. The room briefly froze in their seats as if all of the sounds had been sucked out of the air. And Evelyn's face changed. A flash of Shay tried to hide her surprise with a laugh, but it was too late. The audience had already noticed her moment of vulnerability, and murmurs and tilted phones echoed through the throng like an approaching storm. "You want to play games, Chantal?" Evelyn spoke slowly and deliberately. "Then let's play. But keep in mind that I win." Chantal took a step closer, her eyes never leaving Evelyn's. "You've been losing for a long time. You just don't know it yet." Jackie was on the edge of her seat, torn between stepping in to stop the live tape from spiraling, utterly out of control, and letting it develop because a man's voice yelled from someplace deep in the audience. She's got the messages, and she knew the drama would be the talk of the town for weeks. Everyone turned to look at the source, a tall man wearing a gray sweatshirt with his phone held high above the throng. "I have screenshots and an audio recording of the incident notes. It's all in here." Security began to approach him, but Chantal stood up. "A hand led him through," she said, her voice piercing the confusion, and the crowd grudgingly parted, all faces displaying the morbid curiosity that only arises when a secret is just a few seconds away from being revealed. Evelyn's face stiffened as she walked up to the stage. "Don't you dare," she said, but her voice lacked the strength it had only moments before. The man climbed the steps and gave Chantal his phone, saying, "It's all there. Times, dates," and her voice uttering unbelievable things. Chantal briefly scrolled before pausing on a single clip. She said almost gently, "You want me to play this?" To Evelyn. "You wouldn't," said Evelyn. Her voice was trembling now, though. Chantal pressed the play button. Despite a slight background noise, Evelyn's voice could be clearly heard around the room. ... And it's over for me if they ever learn what transpired in Vegas. We'll both be all right if you don't say anything." Shouts of profanity, gasps, and a few startled giggles filled the room. Evelyn moved forward and grabbed Chantal's phone. "Hon, you don't know the context," she yelled, her voice nearly breaking. "Then explain it." Chantal retorted, "You don't know what that was about." Jackie's voice boomed over the stage as she finally stood up. "Enough. We can't keep doing this on my stage. This is supposed to be about resolution, not destruction." Resolution, however, did not appeal to the audience. They stood up, pointing to their phones and pleading for more. Evelyn inhaled deeply, clearly trying to gather her thoughts. "Fine," she responded in a trembling but sharp voice. "Want to discuss Vegas? Let's discuss Vegas." Boo Chantel crossed her arms and said, "You had better be prepared for your side to come out when I tell mine." "I have nothing to conceal," Evelyn said. "We'll discuss that further." There was a hint of darkness in her voice. Evelyn turned to the cameras in a single motion. "Given that everyone here is the truth for those who seek it, Chantal wasn't merely making a dramatic accusation against me. Her goal is to divert attention from her own mess, because she has been concealing something worse while she has been so busy accusing me." All of the audience's eyes were fixed on Evelyn as they leaned forward like one entity. People could see the double quotes because Chantel's grin wavered just enough. "Oh, don't be shocked," Evelyn added. "You understand exactly what I mean." Sensing that the balance of power was changing once more, Jackie's gaze shifted between the two ladies. She told Evelyn that she was entering perilous area, but Evelyn chose to ignore her. "John Tall, tell them about the texts." With a low, purposeful voice, Evelyn pressed. There was a mutter, "Tell them who they were, too? Or should I?" Chantal's shoulders and the room stiffened. She responded, "You're bluffing," but it didn't sound as confident as it had. Evelyn moved closer till they were just a few inches apart. "Give me a try." The audience was enthralled. with some calling for Chantel to respond and others pleading with Evelyn to reveal. Camera operators were weaving among the tumult, getting every twitch of an eyebrow, every trembling in their voices. As though considering her next course of action, Chantel inhaled deeply. "You think you've got me cornered, but you don't realize what I can do," she said at last, stated in a cool but icy tone. "Then demonstrate for me." Evelyn pushed back. The air seemed to have stopped moving due to the intense stress. As Chantel carefully dug into her bag and took out a little crumpled envelope, the audience leaned in. For the cameras, she held it up. "Do you wish to discuss secrets? Let's discuss this." Evelyn's gaze grew strained. "What is that?" Chantel's. A gentle smile, curled lips. Something that will make Vegas appear like a harmless holiday destination. Jackie raised her hands in frustration as the crowd yelled once more. "This place will be set on fire by you two." "Fire," she whispered. The moment stretched into an almost intolerable wait as Chantel's fingers paused over the flap. Even while her own eyes were fixed on the envelope, the crowd's shouts became frantic as they yelled for her to unlock it. Evelyn sprang forward and grabbed her wrist as she was about to slide a finger beneath the seal. "Don't you dare," she growled, loud enough to be picked up by every microphone in the room. Chantel's eyes widened as the audience gasped once more. She spit out, "Get your hands off me," and pulled her arm away. The room waited for her next move, as if the whole night depended on it, while she gazed down at Evelyn. The envelope still in her hand, and the whole thing is located there. The night passed. Fans are still discussing the expression in Chantel's eyes when she handled that envelope, which went from a heated argument to a full-on storm that nobody anticipated. The way Evelyn's voice cracked for only a second, and how Jackie's stage turned into the center of a reality TV earthquake. According to those with knowledge of the scenario, the tension continued after the cameras stopped rolling. Rolling, indeed. Some claim that the events that transpired backstage may have been even more horrific than what we all just saw. The problem is that none of this has been verified, which is precisely what makes it even more explosive. Right now, all we have are the online responses, and believe me, they are harsh. Hashtags are trending, people are picking sides, and it sues if there is a complete rift in the fan base. While some believe Evelyn's warning concerning Chantel's personal secrets was more than a bluff, others believe Chantel had the right to push Evelyn that far. What do you think then? Was Chantel prepared to ruin Evelyn's whole tale? Or did she conceal herself beneath that envelope to divert attention away from her own mess? More significantly, will one or two careers be ended if that envelope is ever seen? We need to know which side you support, so please share your thoughts in the comments section. If you would want us to continue exploring this story, please make sure to use the like button. Additionally, remember to subscribe so you don't miss this continuing drama's next part. I promise you that if what we're hearing is accurate, tonight will seem manageable in the upcoming update. Hold on tight. This journey is somewhat distant from